Hey everybody, and welcome back to the History Reader. In today's video we're just going to do a bit of a casual Friday reads. I've been pretty busy over the last couple of weeks with finishing up papers for uni, so I haven't actually got through a ton of reading and I haven't been able to plan anything in terms of reviews and stuff like that. But before we start with what I've been reading, I just wanted to say that the next video, which will come out a week from now, is going to be the first video in the Cars What is History read along. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split it into 3 videos. In the first video we're going to do the first 2 chapters, and then we're going to do 2 chapters in the next one and the final 2 chapters in the final video. So we'll do those once a week for the next 3 weeks. So if you do want to read along, then feel free. You can pretty easily find the book, and it's quite cheap on Kindle as well. So I'm just going to do the first 2 actual chapters, not any of the sort of introductions and prefaces and all that stuff, because it's different in every edition. So we'll just do the first 2 actual chapters. But that's for next week. What have I been reading recently? The biggest thing that I've read recently is Richard Overy's new book, Blood and Ruins: The Great Imperial War, 1931 to 1945. So it's a new treatment of the Second World War, looking at it through the lens of empire. So he makes the argument that a lot of the reasons to go to war were about empire. A lot of the decisions that were made by looking at things through an imperial lens, both from a sense of, for example, Germany wanting to get an empire, the Eastern Empire, Lebensraum in the East, and in the case of Japan, extending their empire through the Pacific, and then in the case of the Allies, wanting to defend their empires. And then, so what it does is it explains that thesis, then spends a few chapters basically describing the chronology of the war, and obviously selecting the events that support the thesis. I shouldn't say selecting the events, framing the events in a way that supports his thesis. And then the final sort of 4 or 5 chapters are on basically the way the war was fought and different issues within the fighting of the war. So I'll just open to the contents page here, and I'll tell you this. I've put the dust jacket on upside down. So the chapter 4 is mobilizing a total war, which is about how they mobilize both militarily and the civilian population, and contrast that across the different countries. Number 5 is fighting the war, which is about actually how the war was fought, the technology, the doctrines, those sorts of things. Number 6 is on war economies. Number 7 is on sort of the moral justifications given on all sides for the war. Number 8 is about the home front. Number 9 is called The Emotional Geography of War, and that was really interesting, looking at the psychology of what it was like to fight, what effect that had on each of the armies, and then also the psychology of being at home, particularly in the cities that were bombed, for example. Then it looks at crimes and atrocities, so obviously looking at things like the Holocaust and the atrocities that took place on the Eastern Front and in other places. And then the last one is just a conclusion, looking at that move from the war into sort of the post-imperial age. So that is that book. It's really, really excellent. It's very long, very detailed, but I thought it was really good. I thought it was fairly similar to Max Hastings, but Max Hastings' book on the Second World War, but it kind of takes a different approach, and I really enjoyed it. I think it's a really well-written, single-volume treatment of the war, which is difficult to do. It doesn't focus too heavily on any specific topic. The other thing that I've read is this, David McCullough's Mornings on Horseback. So this is kind of a biography of Theodore Roosevelt, but more about his early life. I didn't particularly enjoy this one. It seemed to focus on some really odd things, particularly around the society that he grew up in, about his family. It spends a whole chapter talking about his asthma, which, look, it was interesting. It just, I suppose it wasn't what I wanted from a biography of Theodore Roosevelt, so I'll probably pick up another one. But that's alright. You're not going to have a banger every time. It is a well written book, it's just not what I was looking for. And then currently, I've just started reading Dreadnought, Britain, Germany, and the Coming of the Great War by Robert K. Massey. This I've been wanting to read for quite a long time. I read Massey's Castles of Steel, Britain, Germany, and the Winning of the Great War at Sea earlier in the year. So obviously, this is technically a follow-up to this one. So Castles of Steel is basically a follow-up to this book, and so I really enjoyed that one, and I had to pick this one up. But it took a very long time to arrive. It was just out of stock, and then there were shipping issues, and we went into lockdown, and all sorts of things happened, so it didn't get to me very quickly. But I'm very excited to read it. It's really well written. The characterization of the people in it so far has been really excellent. Basically, it, from what I can gather so far, is it's going through basically the personal and the national tension between Germany and Britain in the lead up to the war. So the first chapter was about the links between the royal families. It's now gone on to Bismarck and looking at the way Bismarck reshaped the map of Europe in the 1870s, and I don't know what it's going to do from here. I assume at some point it's going to pivot to the Royal Navy, looking at the development of the Dreadnought and what I assume the strategic implications of the Dreadnought. So, like I said, I'm only 100 pages in, and it runs to about 900 or so. So it is a very long one. It's going to take me a little bit to read, but I am loving every page of it so far. So that's what we've got for today. Like I said, I haven't been reading a whole ton just because of how busy I've been. Reminder that the next video is going to be that read-along video, so look out for that. Let me know if you've read any of these books I've spoken about in this video, what you think. If you have any recommendations, I would always love to hear them, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.